Going in now. It'll take 1 moment.
Okay, thank you.
Still setting up.
Okay.
You're set.
Good morning. Today is Friday, February the 10th, 2023, and I'm Delegate Edith Patterson. I'd like to welcome you to the Southern Maryland Delegation meeting. We want to welcome you, and before we begin, I'm going to ask Delegate Todd Morgan if you would lead us in Pledge of Allegiance, followed by Delegate Matt Morgan in prayer.
So I'm back on my handy dandy flag again. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Matt?
Dear God, may we thank you for your goodness, your mercy, and your grace. Help us carry these wonderful gifts in our own hearts and lives as we go forth today, and hopefully give us the wisdoms and strength to make good decisions on behalf of the people of Maryland and still get along after controversial legislation. God bless. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so very much. Thank you very much. And very appropriate what you just cited. We are really very excited and honored to welcome to today's meeting, no stranger to those of us in Maryland and those of us in the nation. U.S. Senator Ben Cardin has been a senator since 2007, but before that, he was with us in the Maryland General Assembly from 1987 to 2007 as a congressional member and Speaker of the House, which is a great honor. He represents the state of Maryland, as I cited before, and he chairs the Senate Small Business Committee. There's so much more, but right now we just want to hear from Senator Cardin and to welcome you to Southern Maryland Delegation meeting.
Well, Madam Chair, first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity. I always enjoy being able to meet with the delegations during the General Assembly session. I regret that we can't do it in person. We recognize the construction issues that you have on campus, so this is what we have to do, but I look forward to when we can be together in person. I always enjoy that. And congratulations to you all for your service to our community. I will acknowledge that I had the most enjoyable part of my public career in the Maryland General Assembly, and was honored to be the Speaker of the House, which was during a time in which we were able to get a lot of things done, and we had a really good relationship among both parties and with the governor. So it was a good period of time, and I really cherish those days. My main reason for being here is to make sure our doors always remain open. Roderick Lewis is on the call. He's responsible to make sure everybody in Southern Maryland's happy all the time. He's my eyes and ears in the southern part of our state. So anything that he can do, including passing messages to me or call me directly, we want to make sure that you know about Roderick. It is Team Maryland. Senator Van Hollen and I work together seamlessly in the United States Senate. So we'll talk a little bit about the appropriations opportunities today. I can assure you on that issue and every issue, we share total information. So the southern part of our state was able to get 9 projects under congressional earmarks for over $5 million. We were able to leverage our 2 offices working together to get more for the people of Southern Maryland and Maryland. And of course, your congressman is, to me, one of the giants in the United States House of Representatives for representing his district. I know he's a national leader. Steny is a national leader, but he also is one of the most aggressive individuals in protecting the interests of his constituents. So the 3 of us work very, very closely together. And look, your priorities are our priorities. We're very concerned about the military installations in the southern part of our state, Pax River and Indian Head. We're concerned about the environmental issues with the Chesapeake Bay. We want to increase economic opportunities. So we've worked with you on some of the tourism issues, whether it's Mullet's Bay or whether it's in the Heritage Declaration that we were recently able to get. All those we think help. And we recognize that infrastructure is critically important. At times, it's very difficult to transverse the roads going into Southern Maryland. So we recognize that we have a challenge. The rapid transit is one area that we're working very closely with you to make sure that you have a federal partner that can make that a reality. And of course, the bridge issues are notorious in the southern part of our state, and we will continue to work with you to make sure that we have the infrastructure that's necessary. The last Congress was, in my view, one of the most productive Congresses we ever had. In 2 years, we passed major legislation, much of which was bipartisan. The infrastructure bill was a bipartisan effort. The Safer Communities Act was bipartisan. The CHIPS and Science bill was bipartisan. The Veterans bill, PAC bill was bipartisan. The Omnibus Appropriation bill was bipartisan. We had our partisan bills with the Inflation Reduction Act and the American Rescue Plan. I mention all of that because now the time for partnerships are here, whether it's in high tech, whether it's in energy, clean energy, whether it's in transportation, whether it's in mental health. And we want to make sure that we work with Team Maryland, with the governor, with the delegation to get the maximum amount of opportunities for the people of Southern Maryland. So we'll be working very closely with you. In this Congress, there's going to be new opportunities. I recognize it's more challenging, but we know that the Farm Bill will be reauthorized in this Congress. There are lots of parts of Southern Maryland that depend very much on the provisions that are included in the Farm Bill, including the nutrition programs and the conservation programs, as well as the commodity programs. And we want to make sure that we are mindful of the needs that you have in the southern part of our state to help in that regard. There are so many areas that we can talk about that we think are important on the congressional earmarks. We have a guidebook that we keep on our online to let you know the areas where we can partner with you. Any application you make for an earmark will be shared between Senator Van Hollen and myself. As I said earlier, we will review them collectively so that we can maximize. Sometimes we will put his name first. Sometimes I'll put my name first in order that we can get the maximum, but we both support each other's requests. We were able to get earmarks in the FY23 cycle to deal with issues such as emergency services, to mental health, to oyster restoration, and other areas similar to that. So we think we have some excellent opportunities as a result of what we've already gotten done, but we do see new opportunities in this Congress. And I know you have a very busy legislative agenda. So I'd be more than happy to try to answer questions or make it clear that the door is always open. And I mean that sincerely. And we look forward to helping where we can, and don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you very much, Senator Cardin. You've covered what we asked you to do, and that was to discuss the projects and earmarks, and we appreciate you for doing that. And I'm going to encourage every office to really look at the guidebook and go online, because I believe the request for 2024 is available now. So let's look to the future for next year. We also want to thank you for your leadership in terms of the projects that you've covered. And the fact that you've always remained mindful of the military bases and our needs. We have in my office been inundated with concerns from persons who have reductions in funding for SNAP and other increases they received because during the COVID or the pandemic, and now those reductions, those increases will no longer be evident. So we will be relying on your office to help the citizens, because for some, it's a dramatic reduction in allocations. Okay.
Agree. By the way, I agree completely with you on the SNAP benefits that are going to now be reduced. It's going to cause a major hardship just at the time when families, particularly those that are stressed, are also dealing with increasing costs from the inflation and challenges of just paying their bills. So you have the pressure with the SNAP reductions. We no longer have the eviction and foreclosure assistance programs, don't have the funds they used to have in it. So hard-pressed families are being hit the hardest right now. And we really do need to look at ways that we can help. So I serve on the Finance Committee, and I intend to focus on the vulnerable families. I also, as you point out, chair the Small Business Committee, and we're trying to help in that regard. The SNAP program will be under consideration during the Farm Bill. It's included in the Farm Bill, the nutrition programs. We also, by the way, have the school lunch and breakfast programs that are also major nutrition programs that are going to be under consideration during the discussion. I mention that because at the end of the day, I think we want to pass a farm bill, and there are different conflicting stakeholder interests, and it really forces us to come together with those of us who have different views. People think of the farm bill to help the rural parts of our country. The farm bill helps all parts of our country. So we intend to be actively engaged during those discussions.
Well, that's great to hear. All right, I have questions from Senator Bailey, followed by Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Senator, for joining us today. I had one, obviously I have a couple issues, and I thank you very much for your support and your pledge to help us with the Thomas Johnson Bridge. But when you speak about the Farm Bill and we talk about invasive species in the Chesapeake Bay, one of the things that we are dealing with that is completely out of control is a blue catfish. And in doing so, the hold that the southern states have against us with the USDA requirement for their farm-raised catfish is being imposed on us on our wild-caught catfish. And so it's really what is threatening the Chesapeake Bay right now is putting cents on the dollar for our fish compared to what they're able to get. And we really need your support when it comes to either one or two ways. Either help us remove that in the Farm Bill so that the wild caught fish are dealt with differently than their farm raised aquaculture blue catfish, or help us to establish either more inspectors or new processing facilities that only deal with blue catfish, so we can get them from, you know, costing a couple cents a pound up to, you know, $2 or $3 a pound, which is what is occurring in you know, down in Louisiana and Tennessee.
Yes. This is one of our highest priorities in the Farm Bill. The special classifications that were given in the previous Farm Bill was because of the unique catfish population in the South. You're 100% right. It should not be applicable to our wild caught catfish. So we are in total agreement. I have identified as one of my responsibilities as the senior senator is to try to coordinate all 10 members of our congressional delegation on priorities. And this is one of our priorities, is to resolve the issue in one of the two ways that you've already mentioned. So it's clearly on our radar screen. It's clearly our priority, and we completely agree with the way you analyzed it.
Thank you, sir.
Senator Ellis, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Carter. Good to see you. And just want to say how much we appreciate your leadership in so many areas and us getting things done. I just followed up a couple of issues. I just want to follow up on my colleague, Senator Bailey. I learned that agriculture is the #1 industry in Maryland, and that's still really big for the state. And there are a lot of things we can do to really ramp up that industry. And, you know, Charles County, the rest of Southern Maryland, a lot of land and big agricultural area also. So appreciate your leadership with that. Also, my #1 priority is transportation, because as you know, we talked about many times, so many of our Charles County residents go to DC area to work. And since more and more of them are required to get back to the office, traffic has returned to the pre-pandemic levels, not just from Charles County, but from the entire region, including Southern Prince George's County. We all converge on 301,
Yeah.
210, 5. And so several issues there. Of course, my number one issue is the SMRT, the rapid transit. And we really appreciate the federal contribution last year, I believe, for that project. I was informed that we have a need for 17 million more in the next year or so to complete the NEPA engineering process. So I'm wondering how if it's too late to request the earmark to help with that 17 million. I'm working with our budget folks in Annapolis to see what we can portion we can get from the state. But any help from the federal government, if you can see what you can do and what we need to do to kind of get that request in, I would love to hear your recommendation.
Sure. First, if I return to the Farm Bill just for one more moment, because it's interesting in Maryland, we have just about every aspect of the agricultural industry located in our state. None are dominant like they are in many other states, which gives us a little bit more flexibility in our negotiations on the Farm Bill. I do point out, though, for the Eastern Shore of Maryland, the poultry industry is a very, very important industry for us to be very mindful of and pay special attention to. And for the seafood industry, the H-2B visas are critically important for that industry to be able to be efficient. But conservation programs, Chesapeake Bay, very important on the Farm Bill. And as Chairman Patterson pointed out, the nutrition program, SNAP, and our school and food programs are also very important and could very well give us a chance under the Farm Bill. In regards to the rapid transit for Southern Maryland, we were able to get for an earmark. Now, earmarks, the size of earmarks are generally pretty modest. They're not, there's very little chance of getting a $17 million earmark. It's just beyond the capacity of us to use earmarks for that particular amount. We were able to get the multi-million-dollar grant initially for the Southern Maryland, which was very, very helpful. But as we have now passed the two bills that directly impact the ability to provide money, the 17 million. One is the bipartisan infrastructure bill that puts a lot more resources into our rapid rail transit and into public transportation. So we should be able to have a easier consideration for funds considering the pie is larger. And then in the Inflation Reduction Act, we have the largest single contribution ever by any country to climate. And public transit is one of our tools to reduce our carbon footprint. So we may have some creative ways to help you in financing through the Inflation Reduction Act. So I think there's avenues that we can help you fill that $17 million. And we'll work very aggressively with you. As I said, you have the most effective member of the House in Steny Hoyer, and Chris Van Hollen serves on the Appropriations Committee. Steny Hoyer serves on the Appropriations Committee. I serve on the Environment and Public Works Committee, the authorizing committees. Chris serves on the Banking Committee, which deals with transit. So we're positioned well to try to help you on this, and we'll work with the federal authorities to make sure this becomes a reality. We're your partners on this. We'll figure out.
Thank you so much for that, sir. Thank you so much for that. So to unlock those funds through those two bills, it's basically, are those funds at the state level through block grants, or they're all administered at the federal level? So we have to go through like the U.S. Department of Transportation to unlock those.
I believe the funds you're looking at will first require direct grants from the federal government, because it's basically the old definition of new starts that we're not quite there yet on having it a full funding agreement yet with the federal government, because you're still in the early stages. So I do think there's some direct federal participation, not just through grant money coming through the states, but it has to be on the state's priority list. So the state has to be the sponsor of the request, but I do think there are competitive national grants, not necessarily funds that go through a state formula, although there are state formula funds that can help us in this regard.
Okay, great. Thank you, Senator.
So much. Thank you, Senator Ellis. And the next question is from Chair Wilson, and that will be the last question for Senator Cardin.
Thank you, Senator Cardin. I appreciate the time you've given us today. My question is brief. It has to do with the grid resiliency and getting the assistance that the state and Southern Maryland needs to increase our grid resiliency as we move towards the electrification. As you well know, it's the rural areas that get hit hardest by winter storms, things of that nature, which knock our electrical lines down. And I know there are monies out there through BRIC and other avenues. I really hope that you can help us. In addition, figure out what to do with our coal-fired plants. Now that they're gone, there's still a perfect distribution. And I know people don't like to, look at nuclear, but I believe that, the country's moving towards that option as the gap between the energy sources that we're using. So I would be interested in your take on small modular nuclear facilities, basically down in Southern Maryland, things in place of where our coal plants are now. Is that something you thought about or looked into?
CD, thanks for that question. I am the sponsor of the nuclear production tax credit that was included in the Inflation Reduction Act. Nuclear power is no longer controversial. It was at one time. And I'm not going to minimize the challenges we have with nuclear waste, but the smaller nuclear reactors don't have that challenge. So they are becoming much more popular. And what we're trying to do with the production tax credit is give them a level playing field for investors to invest in nuclear power moving forward. Perhaps the greatest challenge on any investment in energy is the flexibility of energy costs, and it's difficult to get investors when the different sectors fluctuate so greatly. Sometimes there's a war like in Ukraine that affects the energy prices. So that's been our challenge. We tried to equalize that during the Inflation Reduction Act, and we think that there's going to be a much more constant investment flow into nuclear, and we do think the smaller reactors are the future. And then after that, it's going to be nuclear fusion, and we're very interested in advancing that technology for the future. But that's not going to be short term. That's going to be a longer term solution. I do want to point out that in regards to resiliency, there are funds available under the Inflation Reduction Act to deal with resiliency of our energy infrastructure. There's also money in the bipartisan infrastructure bill to deal with resiliency. And we recognize that we need to develop a network. We're electrifying as much as we possibly can in our transportation fleet. In order to do that, and we're using more renewable energy sources, we have to have a resilient and flexible energy grid that can handle those types of challenges. I just visited in the Baltimore region, organic recycling facility that produces natural gas. Get that natural gas into the pipelines. We need to make sure that we have a resilient energy grid that can handle that, because it's coming from non-conventional sources. So these are all the issues that are part of the energy future for America. And the good news is that the Inflation Reduction Act is an unprecedented, the largest ever to move this forward. One last point on this. I know the chairman wants to move forward. The chair wants to move forward. One last point. We're getting complaints from our European allies that we've done too much in this area. These are great complaints for us to have. We can really energize our economy on these issues, just as CT is pointing out, and we can become a magnet for economic opportunity and growth through expanding these types of technologies and making sure that we have the grid to handle it. So I'm very excited about this. I think Southern Maryland is well positioned for this. And I think your leaders understand this, and we'll work in partnership with them.
And Senator, I just want to say that, and I appreciate the work you've done. I've obviously considered my committee. I'm familiar with your efforts. I'm just wanting to make sure that the Southern Maryland area doesn't get left out, because a lot of times they're always slow to get to us. They start with the big metropolises, and wanted to make sure that we get ours in a timely manner too, as far as grid resiliency. So I really appreciate your input, sir.
Thank you.
Senator Cardin, absolutely. You get a sense of how many questions we have, and certainly the knowledge that you're imparting to us is so invaluable And I know that Roderick Lewis is your liaison or connection for us, and we will certainly utilize him should there be follow-up questions. But again, thank you so much for all that you're doing, not only for Maryland, but for the entire country and nation.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and everybody have a good day. Have a nice weekend and stay safe, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Next is Destination Southern Maryland, Lucille Walker. Lucille is the Executive Director for Expanded Opportunities for Southern Maryland, and she has so much energy and excitement. So I look forward to hearing what's new with Lucille.
Thank you. Thank you. It's wonderful to be able to be here with you all today. I will keep it brief because I know I'm following Senator Cardin. I know you all have a lot on your agenda, but the big news is we are now the Southern Maryland National Heritage Area. That has been passed, yay, passed through Congress. It required an act of Congress. It required the hard work of the gentleman who was just speaking, Senator Cardin, Congressman Hoyer, Senator Van Hollen. It also really required a bipartisan effort throughout our region, which is really remarkable. We are also, as a national heritage area, we are the fastest moving national heritage area they've ever had. We got it done in 2 years. And one of the reasons is the partnerships and the stories that we have and the heritage that we bring to this nation. So it's a remarkable beginning. And we are in the announcement phase right now, but we will also be having a launch. And of course, everyone from the Southern Maryland delegation will be not only invited, but will be invited with much enthusiasm to participate in that launch. It's looking like late May or early June. It'll be based on both our federal legislators' schedule and also the governor's schedule. We want to make this really pop because Southern Maryland, as you all know, and I don't have to tell anyone on this call, but I know people are listening who might not know that we are foundational to what our nation stands for and what our nation can be. I could go into many details about that. But I'm just going to hit a couple just very quickly. We are aware for the first time in all of the Western world that any type of religious freedom was put into law, any type of religious toleration. It was here. And at the time, it was an obscure little peninsula at the end of the world when it happened in the 1600s. We're also the first place a person of African descent ever served in a legislature in America, and that's Matthias de Sousa, 1642. We're the first place a woman ever petitioned for the right to vote. And of course, she was therefore the first woman to be denied the right to vote, but she was the first woman to petition for the right to vote. And if you hear laughter in our room, I'm here on a tourism day. I'm here in Annapolis, coming to you with partners in our region, and we're all here with enthusiasm. Those are just a couple to start with, but as you look at the many firsts that we have, of course the National Marine Sanctuary of Melrose Bay. We have many first people of distinction from Matthew Henson to Elizabeth Brown. There's so many people to talk about. We're the first astronauts trained, and we're also where technology is still cutting edge in our region. So when we look at this and we look what our region says to our nation, becoming a national heritage area was essential, and it's very hard. I mean, when I said we did it in 2 years, that's remarkable. And that really is because of the hard work of everyone, a huge team, because we're aiming toward when we commemorate the 400th of this state, which is only about 12 years away now. And so this is a real important first step in bringing the spotlight to Southern Maryland, not only within Maryland, not only within our region, but for the nation. There were only 55 national heritage areas before this latest legislation went through. And that's not many. There are some states that don't have one. And we are lucky to have another standalone national heritage area in Baltimore. So between the two of us, we can really kind of balance and show Maryland's story. So that's just the quick version. I mean, there's so much to talk about, but I know you all are on a schedule. But again, It's kind of fun, very 21st century, to race into Annapolis in order to be on a Zoom. I thought that was very funny and very festive. And I have a bunch of people here with me. I just wanted to highlight a couple. I'm gonna, if it's all right, I was gonna turn the computer around. I have representatives from St. Mary's and Calvert. And I do want to say that our Charles County representative wanted to be here today, but she's out of the state. So we're sad not to have Charles County, but we're here in spirit for Charles. So I live in Charles, if that counts. So
Yeah, that counts.
oh, and I see, before I do that, I did notice that there's a hand up if you wish me to address that first.
Yes, we have Senator Ellis as a question, and then you can proceed to introduce the other members.
Thank you.
Hi, Ms. Walker. I don't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to get in the queue. That's all. So, well, thank you for all that you do in leadership in this area. And so someone approached me, Professor Gene Bailey, talking about Port Tobacco and its rich history. That was the largest seaport way before Civil War, all that stuff. And of course, we have a lot of enslaved were carried there over the years. And this Professor Bailey, she's getting grants to get what you call markers for these ports. Have you worked with her, heard of her, or are you working with the Port Tobacco and trying to include that as a big part of this historical Southern Maryland?
Oh, absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up. I have not worked with that professor directly, but I do work with Port Tobacco quite a bit. I was just down there filming for Charles County a little piece on why Port Tobacco is so important. It's a vital part of our region, and it is a big story. It's a big story also because when you look at that area, it originally was an indigenous, very important to the indigenous people of the region. And we still have First People here, which is another huge component of our story. And they're very involved in telling that story. But Port Tobacco is also a story of what was lost and what was left behind.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a unique place. And I love the courthouse there and the whole region there. And when they have events there, we try to really promote it. Yes, thank you. Port Tobacco, very significant. And I'll have to hook up with that person you were talking to see what I can do to help.
Okay.
We've been able to give grants to Port Tobacco for various activities. And
you were able to?
we were, yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, thank you for your attention to that particular part and for your answer. Have a great day.
Thank you, Senator. All right, I'm going to introduce a couple people. I'll let them introduce themselves. We're going to turn this around. You all have to see if you're in here. Here's St. Mary's. Are you guys in there?
Scoot in.
You want to introduce yourselves?
Go one at a time. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Andrew Ponte, the marketing manager with the St. Mary's County Museum Division.
Zachary Steele with the Friends of St. Clements Island and Piney Point Museums.
Hi, I'm Karen Stone, and I'm the division manager for all of the museums in St. Mary's County, including the St. Clements Island Museum, which is where we celebrate Maryland Day every year on March 25th. So I hope you will all come join us that day for the ceremony to honor our state's heritage.
Ooh.
Hi, I'm Brendan Rosario. I'm the program and special events intern for Destination Southern Maryland, now the Southern Maryland National Heritage Area.
Woohoo.
Good morning. My name is Hillary Daly. I'm the Tourism Division Chief for Calvert County.
So we are all here on Tourism Day to support another big industry in our state. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Well, thank you very much. I love the fact that you were able to share your computer, share your vision with all the other representatives from St. Mary's as well as Calvert. A lot of information, a lot of good facts, and we look forward to visiting some of the destinations you've cited. Are there any questions? I don't see any hands. If not, Lucille, thank you once more, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks up here again. So since this is, are you visiting different offices today?
I am. I was going to come bother your office if it was okay.
That's fine. That's fine. All right. Welcome. Thank you all.
Thank you.
For being here. We look forward to seeing you all later.
Thank you.
Okay. And the last presentation on the agenda is Maryland Municipal League, MML, Angelica Angelica, Bailey, Director, and a familiar face, Teresa Coons.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and hello and good morning to my favorite delegation. Hope everyone is doing well. I have taken over at MML back in October. Maryland Municipal League has 157 cities and towns in Maryland. So we are the voice for La Plata in Charles County, Leonardtown in St. Mary's, the beaches, and also Port Tobacco in Charles County. So Angelica, I'm going to do a quick overview. We're not going to take up much of your time. I know you have a very busy schedule about some of the priorities you're going to hear from us this year. And then if you ever need anything, Angelica is our lead advocate and we have a great team. So however we can help you, I'm still here to be supportive of the Southern Maryland delegation. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Angelica Bailey Thupari. We are very, very happy at MML to have stolen Teresa away from all of you out of Southern Maryland. She's fantastic for MML. And we have really hit the ground running this year. So many of you, I think, probably are familiar with one of our top priorities relating to police accountability boards. So quick overview, a few years ago, the police reform bill passed 2021. That was House Bill 670 or 671, I believe. Fine, cool, we have no problem with that. The only part that we want to tweak deals with the police disciplinary process. So that package created accountability boards and administrative charging committees only on the county level. And we have 157 members and 88 of them have their own police departments, including in Southern Maryland. So all of those municipal police departments are completely unrepresented unless they happen to have a good relationship with their county colleagues. And then maybe the county will allow them to have a seat on those county level boards. So we see this as a fairness issue. It's also a representation and a justice issue, right? If you're a municipal resident and you want to have a voice in this process, there's no guarantee for that. And when you have a county like Prince George's that has 27 municipalities, 25 of which have their own police departments, there's a big concern about backlog as well. So we see this as a simple tweak, just some very simple bill language. We've got some strong sponsorship on both sides. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but we are very excited for the opportunity to hopefully secure some meaningful municipal representation in this process this year.
And I think the only other piece that we want to bring up, and we would like to thank Chairman Wilson for your cannabis legislation. We're excited to see municipalities included in that. You find across the country and the 19 other states have implemented marijuana and cannabis side. The legislation or the local governments are the ones implementing it and making sure public safety, making sure there's zoning correctly done. So we appreciate the revenue side. I believe we've spoken with Joy and we're hoping to get in to visit with you at some point. We'll be at the hearing and we're just excited to be included and we hope to have more of a meaningful representation on the revenue side.
Well, thank you very much. I believe we also have a copy of your priorities as well that were sent to the various offices. So make sure members that we view that. And we look forward to having you visit. Teresa, congratulations on your appointment. Senator Ellis has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and Teresa, Ms. Bailey, thank you so much for your presentation. Do you have a bill sponsor for those bills you mentioned on both sides for the municipal and bill number and the sponsor? Do you have that information to share with us?
Yes, sir. Of course. So Ron Watson is our lead sponsor in the Senate, and Ms. Leslie Lopez is our lead sponsor in the House.
How about bill number? You have any bill numbers with that, or?
I do. I
If not, don't worry about it. You can reach out to me and let me know.
Bill 5. I think it's House Bill 531, but I'll confirm that for you, sir.
Yeah, please. Yeah, reach out to my office so we can be sure exactly to support them as they come through our bodies. And also remember that my committee, Finance Committee, have cannabis too. So whatever issues you have, reach out to both sides because
Perfect.
Both of us have an equal hand in the crafting of that and passing that legislation. So bicameral body. So
thank you, Senator. And to be honest, we would like to use what Senator Feldman, Chairman Feldman, and the Senate did previously on the tax legislation. So it's going to mirror what you all had put in there before what we'll ask for the House side. So we'll definitely make sure to get that to you.
Yeah, definitely. We try to, it came over basically similar. We want to keep it that way. And
absolutely
so this year. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator. We also have Justin Fiore from the MML legislative team here on the call as well, and he and one of our other colleagues, Bill George, will be taking lead on that cannabis bill. So you'll be hearing from them a lot, I'm sure.
All right, thank you very much, Angelica, and thank you very much, Teresa. And members, excuse me, make sure you have a copy of their priorities. If not, reach out to their offices for it, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
John Hartline is he here? John, before we get into the Tri-County of the legislation as it relates to Tri-County Council, John, if you would just share the numbers of registrants and sponsors. I think we need a drum roll.
Actually, we now have a total number of potential attendees of 325. And we have increased we originally contracted with the hotel for 300 positions. We've increased that to 350, and we are sending them funds to cover that on Monday. And we've already informed them. So we're having very good success at getting attendance, and we look forward to having a great event.
All right, what about sponsors? Have you maxed there?
We have added sponsors. We already have in hand 2 Chesapeake sponsors, 8 Patuxent sponsors, and 3 Potomac sponsors. We've already received $18,500 in sponsorship payments, and we have gotten verbal sponsors for $3,500 for a total of about 22,000 right now. And we have other people that are contacting us now for sponsorships as well. So we're making good financial headway and attendance headway.
And we just want to hold back the snow. And lastly, I'm going to make an appeal on behalf of Kara and Melinda. We need volunteers on that day of the event. So if you have staff members, we're encouraging you to have a staff member come down and help them out with registration and greeting of guests. Okay, if there are any questions, no. The last item is a Tri-County Council legislation. I believe all of you should have gotten a copy of it. It was a bill that was sent through Charles County delegation, and it addresses the membership based upon the county's enrollment. So, Delegate Davis, you want to share this, or do you want me to continue with it?
You can go ahead. Hold on. Oh, I unmuted myself. Thank you. I believe everyone has a copy already. There was discussion. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that we were trying to establish some equity in the Tri-County Council voting. The bill has been filed, but we thought it was important to let our colleagues know.
Okay. Are there any questions regarding the legislation that's been proposed? Senator Ellis?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a little note. Working with the Secretary of the Senate, basically, we had to file it as the Charles County senators. We try to do it and work through the process of the Southern Maryland delegation, but the word came back, we couldn't do it through that particular organ. So they went and did it. I'm not sure if you got the same answer in the House with the legislation, but that's what we got back in the Senate.
Okay. And Delegate Morgan, Matt Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we need to have a conversation on this. What is the catalyst for dropping this legislation?
You want me to respond? You're on mute.
Yes, you
Who's
can.
responding? Because I'll respond if nobody else does, but go ahead.
Well, I think it started off with an equity issue in terms of looking at how representation is offered. And so the bill, I think shouldn't be a surprise, it was offered before, that there should be some mechanism to balance it out. Okay. Senator Delegate Wilson, did you have any more response? Sorry.
Well, from what I'd been hearing, and I appreciate Madam Chair's eloquent way of putting it, is Charles County, both the delegation and the commissioners were at a tipping point because of the treatment that had been received in these meetings consistently, although we're the largest county, being pretty much our voice being stomped down. And the concern was basically just backing out of Southern Maryland, the Tri-County stuff altogether. This was a solution that I'd offered to not do that because I do believe we need to work together. But I think when people feel their voices aren't being heard and that they're constantly being pushed down and voted down, then why do we play in that sandbox? So, we ran through a list of ideas and thought maybe this was the fair, and as Madam Chair said, the most equitable way of handling this situation, because it doesn't deter from St. Mary's and Calvert, but it allows Charles, who have the most input, the most financial responsibility, to have a greater voice. So our needs are also met. Our highway and transportation needs are acknowledged versus constantly being put to the side, because that's the direction this was going. It was going a direction where we were going to move apart. And this was done in an effort to try and preserve the sanctity and the relationships that the three counties have. That's my opinion from what I've listened to.
Well, if you want my opinion, it's done as a mean-spirited, really just to break up the Southern Maryland region, to tell you the truth. I don't think it's done to keep the counties together. I think it's done to drive them apart.
Matt, to be honest with you, this was my idea. And
okay.
I'm not a mean-spirited person.
I think it's a bad idea.
I got the bad idea part, but it wasn't mean-spirited. This was really done because the original argument was, let's just back out. And Charles County would no longer be a part of that Tri-County. That was the original intent. I'm the one who said, let's find another way, another direction that appeases both sides, that keeps us in, but allows the individuals who are participating in Tri-County to feel they have a better voice. So I'll guarantee you it wasn't out of bad faith. It wasn't mean-spirited. It was an attempt to preserve what we already have.
So can you tell me if any other Tri-County in the state is population-based based on their membership? And we both know the answer to that is no.
Again, I'll take your word for it. This, I tell you, I didn't go and do a balancing test with other states or other counties. This was just an opportunity before things went off the cliff. We jumped the shark. That's why this came about. And I'm sure the other my other colleagues could expound upon this, because I was honestly shocked, and I'd been hearing the issues and the acrimony in some of these meetings, and I knew the direction was going, so we were trying to preserve that. That's where we are. Is I just didn't want it to go where we're no longer working together, part of Tri-County, because it greatly weakens Tri-County. It doesn't help you guys if we pull out, and it doesn't specifically make us any stronger. And I wanted to do something. So again, I'd love to hear your solution to the problem, unless you don't. Have I expressed the problem clear enough from my understanding?
Yeah, I think I understand your reasoning, because, well, I mean, for once, you're not getting, and when I say you, I'm not attacking you, CT. I mean Charles County. It's like the only thing that you all don't control. And it seems to be like it's just driving y'all crazy. And because we actually do have a say in the majority of votes, and Deborah's smiling because she doesn't think it's serious, but this all goes back to the transportation letter, right, from like 2 years ago. Is that what this is? Can you give me another example of where Tri-County Council is acting not in good faith, or it's just nerve-wracking that you think you've been victimized by it, like you're being hurt by it, and that's just simply not true.
if anybody else would chime in again,
I,
guys.
I,
this was
I
just
would love to
received.
chime. I would
Please.
love to chime in because I smile because in my colleague's just statement, he said it's the only thing y'all don't control. I think that may explain that attitude is what explains probably why we are here. If you look at the numbers, if you look at the proposal, we're still not in control. It just gives us a more of a vote, but we're still not in control. So take a look at it and you will see that all it does is give some equity. And it makes sense that the citizens of Charles have 2 more representatives on the board. That's simply all it does. And it makes sense that if we're representing voters, if we're representing constituents, that our constituents have a proportional vote. Just makes sense.
And it doesn't penalize other counties, okay? At any rate, if there are no more discussion.
Well, personally, I just wish that, I mean, that attitude didn't exist when we did redistricting last year, when it was like single member versus multi-member districts. So I'll just throw that out there that if we're going to be intellectually honest here, the logic is not consistent.
Hey, Edith.
All right.
Edith.
Yes.
Hi.
Good morning, Mark.
Good morning. Hey, look, I just wanted to give like a little history of the council, which it obviously predated me, but it was passed on to me by Johnny Wood and a bunch of others who were on the council years ago. The council was set up because when Paris Glendening was governor, he decided to put in legislation to effectively run everyone who was a farmer who was at that time growing tobacco out of business and kind of do a buyout and kind of force the buyout. There was simultaneously with that a tobacco settlement with the tobacco companies and the state of Maryland. That amount of money was enormous. Enormous. I mean, it was, I don't recall the exact amount, but it was, I'm sure, in the hundreds of millions. So the Tri-County Council was created to try to help the very poor Southern Maryland region, all 3 counties, by the way, very poor at the time, as a result of the primary driver of the economy being farming, being essentially run out of business. And so no sooner did that happen than the state of Maryland decided to bond the money, even though the money was supposed to go to the farmers and the Tri-County Council, believe it or not, that all that money was supposed to go there. The state bonded the money and then borrowed off of it. In other words, it never gave the money to the council, and nor did it really fully pay off the farmers for deciding not to grow the product. And so it's important to put that out there because Charles County, of course, at the time, so did Calvert and so did St. Mary's, had pretty substantial farming community. I think they all still do, certainly not as big as they once were. And the tradition of the council has always been that everybody works together and tries to get along. And understanding that effectively, I think when I see this, what I see is a potential, and it may not be that, but it probably is a money grab of the money that happened at the expense of the farmers who never really got the payout. It's why to this day, SMATIC has to come to Annapolis and beg for money, even though, and so does Tri-County Council. So I'm just bringing that up because that history is important. I mean, it was once a really poor region and we really did work together. And I know I've always tried to work together, but at the same time on the council, but at the same time, it's important. And CT knows this, and so does the council. I was the one who worked hard to try to restructure the council in a way so that people had the pay so that we could get the best talent and increase salaries. CT then took the idea and he put the bill in, and that resulted in increased pay for council members, which is really fantastic, which is really brings us here today. So when I see this, it's really weird because I'm trying to figure out, whenever I see someone trying to rewrite the rules, of something that is working, it obviously, I'm not a big fan of that, you know, and maybe it's because I'm principled. But I just wanted to make those comments. Ultimately, Charles County can do what it wants to do. We all know that. The question is it in the spirit of the region? And if it's not, then it might be time to dissolve the Tri-County Council. And that is to say, Calvert County pulling out of the council. I can tell you Buddy Hance, former Secretary of Agriculture and a former, you know, very substantial farmer, still farms. I mean, he can give you a history on this too, which is important. And it's worth it to talk to people rather than to, you know, rather than to just put this stuff out there, because you're stepping on a lot of people who have worked very hard to bring our region to where it is.
Thank you, Mark. I think I don't see the proposed legislation as a means of dissolving Tri-County Council. I simply see it as an equity proposition and opportunity. All right, we're going to have to close up.
Edith, I just wanted to clarify something. I wasn't suggesting that you were trying to dissolve the council. I wasn't just, I'm suggesting that we, Calvert County, might not want to be part of it because of the fact that this is not in the spirit of working together as a community, which I have always done on the Tri-County Council. And you know that because we've served together for a long time.
Absolutely. I think what you're saying is what Charles County thought as well. So
exactly.
We're just
we were trying to preserve something. I believe at the end of the day, I'm sorry, Chairwoman, at the end of the day, Mark, or Delegate Fisher, then so be it, because we were trying to preserve it. I don't believe that at the end of the day, even the things you're discussing historically have very little impact on the current Charles County. So the farming community, the stuff that you're talking about, I was just trying to preserve it because I know there is strength in numbers. However, if it's this body's intent, we can all fight our own battles.
Well, no, I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight the battle, but I just want to say for the record, since this is being recorded, CT, would you be willing to remove Calvert County from the council? Because I'm pretty sure that if I have a conversation with our commissioners, they're going to decide, you know what, maybe Charles County should own the council and get the money from the council.
There doesn't need to be a council is what I think everybody's saying. I apologize. That doesn't need to be a thing.
I'm not saying that.
I am. I'm saying that instead of doing that, again, I'm sorry, Chairwoman, I'll let you speak. I apologize.
Right now, this is legislation that is being proposed.
That's all.
And I think everything is right now premature. This was a courtesy.
I know that. And all I'm saying is, Edith, and I appreciate that. I understand where we are. I also have been here long enough to know how it works. So all I'm saying is, if you decide to move forward, then I want a yes or no right now, whether or not you're willing to remove Calvert County from the council, because we want to be removed. If that's the way we're going, and that's what you want to do, we all know you can do it. You have the authority and the power to do it.
Okay, Delegate Fisher, would you, right now, the discussion is going over our allotted time. Delegate Davis has a meeting right after this.
I understand that, but I just want a yes or no. Please amend your legislation.
A yes or no is inappropriate at this time. All right.
It's not inappropriate. It's the appropriate conversation, Edith, because this is the only forum.
As the chair of the meeting, your request is inappropriate, and I really want to honor the fact that we are on a schedule, and we can certainly continue this.
Madam Chair, I mean, this is way more important than listening to the senator ramble on for 25 minutes about, whatever he was talking about. I mean, this is our only forum to talk about this.
But it won't be our last time. That's what I'm saying. You guys are saying like we'll never meet again or talk again. This is not our last. And again, Madam Chair, I apologize. This is not our last time. It's proposed legislation. It's still a conversation, guys. We don't have to rush. We don't have to give any answers. It is literally proposed legislation. This does not have to be meted out and handled today.
Okay, so then we're going to propose legislation to be removed then and bring it up to the next.
This is what I'm going to do as chair. I'm going to request that we have not scheduled a meeting for next week. The next meeting is the 24th of February. I will be willing to modify that meeting and have it totally or halfway dedicated to this legislation if you feel that that is necessary. But at this juncture, I am going to unfortunately close the discussion. I cannot impede and run over on someone else's time. So I appreciate the fact. And also, let me be clear. Senator Cardin is a key member of the United States Senate, and he is our representative. And I appreciate the fact that he was here today. And it has been the norm for the Southern Maryland delegation to have representatives to come in and discuss. It's never mindless. What he said was very important. So at this juncture, thank you very much, everyone, for being in attendance. Again, we'll make a decision regarding the next meeting. And I appreciate you very much and have a